Okay, how's it going, guys? It is I, the man with the information, and in this video I want to discuss algal blooms. Now, in the United States, just recently, there has been a recorded number of roughly 400 algal blooms over 41 states out of the 50, I believe there are. That's, I think, roughly 70 more recorded blooms than last year. I think last year they had about close to 300, I believe it was, somewhere around there. But over 41 states, and every single year since 2010, it's been increasing. Now, in this video, I don't want to discuss about all the algal blooms that's happening worldwide, because they're happening worldwide. In every single country, there are some form of ridiculous outbreak in algal blooms. What I'm going to do is discuss how these occur, why they're deadly, and how we can stop them. Because for you to understand why it's happening, you need to understand what they are. That's what this video is about. So, let's get into it. Alright, so algal blooms are a relatively natural occurrence of an increase in microalgae and macroalgae in freshwater or marine ecosystems. And how these occur are changes in temperature, large rainfall events, or changes in nutrients in the water. Now, increases in agriculture and urban discharge into rivers has increased the amount of algal blooms globally. What this does is that because algal blooms rely on the nutrient content of the water, that is the phosphorus and the nitrogen in the water column, these agriculture and urban development land pump excess nutrients of nitrogen, phosphorus and other chemicals into the water column, allowing the algal blooms to bloom. This ultimately causes three things: duration, potency, and the expanse at which they cover. So think of it like this. You know the fat kid in Willy Wonka when he first found like the chocolate river and he went absolutely crazy?
Grandpa, look at Augustus.
Don't worry, he can't drink it all.
Augustus, sweetheart, save some room for later.
Yeah, so that's algae with nitrogen and phosphorus. They go nuts when that stuff is in the water in excess. So here's the problem with unnatural algal blooms. They suffocate the water. The thing with algae is that they take up a lot of CO2 in the atmosphere and produce oxygen. Pretty good, right? The problem here is that at night time they respire, meaning they take up oxygen. So what happens is that if these algal blooms are in excess, they're going to be taking up a lot of oxygen at night. And it's not only at night. When algal blooms die, they sink to the bottom of the floor of whatever body of water that they may be in, be it river, be it stream, be it lake, be it dam, be it the ocean. They'll sink to the bottom, they'll die and take up oxygen and trap it in the sediments. Now, large unnatural algal blooms can cause mechanical disruption in wide expanses of organism populations. What I mean by mechanical disruption is that they are able to irritate gill slits in a bunch of organisms, meaning they'll most likely die. And it's not just limited to aquatic organisms. Livestock that drink the water can also become affected. They can become ill, it can transfer through to the meat that we eat, and ultimately become a toxic source of food or become a toxic piece of water in general. Humans are not immune to this. In fact, we're probably at the most danger. This is because algal blooms typically reside in freshwater systems. You know, you can see them in oceanic environments, not uncommon, but mainly in freshwater. And freshwater is our main source of water. Once it's in there, it can't be used because it becomes toxic. So if we consume water that has had algal blooms or previous algal blooms that haven't been removed or the toxins weren't removed, we can have widespread respiratory dysfunction, irritation on the esophagus and the lungs, and potentially death. There have been recorded deaths by some species of algae in the environment. Now when I say it's not just limited to freshwater, here's an example. The Gulf of Mexico has 15,000 square kilometer zone of hypoxic condition, meaning it's basically a dead zone. The dissolved oxygen in the water column, or the oxygen in general, is so low that species survivability is very minimal. When you think algal blooms, you think green algae. You are primarily correct, but there are 3 different types of algal blooms that you will most likely see. Those are the green algae, blue-green algae, red blooms. And then you've also got some more toxic blooms, such as the cyanobacterias. These ones you want to kind of steer clear. Well, we want to steer clear from all of them, but this one you definitely want to steer clear from. So with these, what happens is, as I said, they make the waters very, very toxic because they leach toxins as they die. This means fish die. Livestock can potentially die if they use that water source for water. We can die if we use it as our drinking supply. So in saying all of that, they cause hypoxic conditions, remove most of the oxygen out of the water. How do we stop it? It's quite easy, quite simple. You know, tackle the source. Stop pumping nutrients into the water. It's quite easy. Or so you think. With sewage treatment plants, we pump a lot of crap, no pun intended, into the water. What they're doing now is they're changing their discharge procedures as of recent. And what this means is that the discharge procedures that they will be using, or are currently in use in a very small minority, are testing the amount of chemicals that they put in and put out. Meaning they're very conscious and self-aware of what's going into the environment at certain times so that this doesn't occur. So that the algal blooms don't occur. Now with agriculture, it's a little bit more difficult and a lot more expensive. This is because agriculture covers such a wide base of land worldwide, and it's used by almost everyone. And so the main issue here are pesticides and fertilizers, which everyone uses. I shouldn't say everyone, most people use. What happens is that it may not directly go into the water, but it'll directly enter the water through rain or runoff sources that farmers probably weren't thinking about when using. So to tackle that source is very, very difficult, and we still don't know how to, besides the fact to stop using pesticides and fertilizers, but you can't really do that. So a lot of algal blooms popping up everywhere, and for that to happen means that there's a lot of excess nutrients in the water. Naturally, they'll come and go. It's a natural process, but they're staying for longer. In fact, it's been recorded that algal blooms globally are occurring in winter conditions and staying in winter conditions for longer periods than previously recorded. This is because algal blooms typically like to pop up during warmer months when the water is warm. And that's the natural cycle. We've changed that, like with everything we touch. We may be the fathers of invention or the mothers of invention, but boy do we suck at it. Anyway, that's the end of that video. I hope you liked it. Possibly a short one, I'm not too sure. But yeah, important topic to cover, especially if you want to know more about the algal blooms or why they're occurring, or if there's one occurring in your area. Cover it, watch this video, share it around. Algal blooms may be cool, but they're not. They're very toxic. I'll see you guys next Wednesday for another video. Make sure you educate, don't eradicate. Make sure you subscribe. Check out CLASP, great organization. Links down below. Also chuck some more information down there for more algal blooms. But that is that. See you guys next time. I hope you enjoyed.